Hi guys, this is video number 2 on operant conditioning. Today we're going to talk about reinforcement schedules, and that tends to be one of the trickier things within this unit and actually tends to be one of the harder things for people to understand within the class. So my best advice for you getting through this is read all of the practice scenarios, examples, questions, problems, whatever, very, very carefully so you can figure out very easily what they're actually asking you. All right, let's get into it. So, reinforcement schedules. How often do you give the reinforcer? Sometimes you're going to give it every single time a behavior is exhibited. Sometimes you're only going to just give it some of the time. Now, I will say that this also applies to punishment. Right? You only get, you get marked tardy every time you are late for a class versus you only get in trouble some of the time when you break a curfew. But we're just going to talk about it in this video in the context of reinforcement to kind of make it a little bit easier. So is it every time the desired behavior is exhibited or just some of the time when it is? So the first question is it continuous or is it partial? Continuous happens every single time the behavior is exhibited. This is usually happening when a subject or a person, animal, whatever, is first learning to make the association. So I think of when we first taught my dog Lucy how to sit and stay and, lay down and all that stuff. Every single time she did it, because she was a puppy and it was so cute, we gave her a cookie. But very quickly she learned that if she's not getting a cookie, she's not sitting. And that can be a problem because if we just, need to open the door to go get the mail or something and don't want her to run out and chase the mailman, we need her to sit and stay. So with a continuous schedule, acquisition comes really fast, but so does extinction. As soon as, say, you stopped getting tardies for coming to classes late, or stop getting penalized for turning in work late, you're just going to start saying, well, it's not as big of a deal. I don't need to come to class or turn in or whatever on time. Partial reinforcement schedules are the tricky ones. You reinforce the behavior only some of the time it is exhibited. Acquisition happens a lot more slowly, but it is way more resistant to extinction. So there are 4 types of partial reinforcement schedules, and this is kind of where things get tricky because we can kind of tell right off the bat if it's every time the behavior is exhibited or some of the time the behavior is exhibited, but what that some of the time means is different for the different types of partial reinforcement schedules. Okay, so the partial reinforcement schedules dealing with the amount of time are going to be your interval schedules. I don't really have a great way to remember this other than the fact that the word interval takes longer to say than the other word, ratio, but interval is based on time. It's a little bit longer, it takes a little longer to say. I mean, there's a T in the other one too, but interval is based on time. Think about like an interval-based workout, right? You're going every 30 seconds or you're running for 4 minutes or whatever. All right, so a fixed interval is going to be a set amount of time has to pass before the reinforcement is given. This can be like clock time, or it can be days on a calendar, or anything along those lines. So an administrator observes a teacher every other Friday. Now, the behavior that the administrator is hoping to see from the teacher is going to be pretty obvious, but knowing that they're doing it only every other Friday, the teacher is going to be on their best game. So the other type of interval schedule is a variable interval schedule. Okay. This requires a random and unpredictable amount of time to elapse before giving the reinforcement. So here an administrator observes a teacher on random occasions. They don't know when they're getting observed, so they really can't slack off. Same thing with you guys. If you know that you have a quiz every single Friday, you're going to spend Thursday night going over the information and know that you'll do well on the quiz if you do that. Where if it's a variable interval schedule, like pop quizzes, you don't know when they're happening. You have to either learn to study pretty much nightly and go over your stuff every night, which you should be doing anyway, or, fail the quiz because you don't know when it's going to happen. So it's very hard to get acquisition on the variable Partial reinforcement schedules, this is going to be true for the ratio schedules as well. It's very hard to get acquisition, but it's also much more resistant to extinction. If you're studying every night because you don't know when the next quiz is going to be, you're going to get in the habit of studying every night regardless, and your grades are going to be better. All right, ratio schedule, this one's a little bit easier because the letters match. Ratio is based on number of responses. So a fixed ratio schedule is every time there is a set number of responses happen, okay, that's when you get the reinforcement. So it's going to be things like buy 10 smoothies, get one free. For every pair of jeans you sell, you get $5. For every 5 math problems you do, you get to take a break. A variable ratio schedule is going to be a random number of responses. And the example that they love to use for this one, even though you guys are not anywhere near, well, some of you might be, not anywhere really near being able to gamble, is slot machines. Okay, you pull 10 times and then you win some money, you pull 15 times and you win some money, you pull 7 times and then you get some money. That's really kind of how slot machines and like gambling establishments work. They kind of play off the variable ratio schedule because you don't know when the next big win is coming. So they get you to keep playing and playing because you falsely think that, well, this next one should be the next big winner. So again, also very hard to get acquisition, but also very resistant to extinction. So a couple of notes on schedules of reinforcement if this is something that ends up coming up. Fixed schedules typically tend to cause extinction much more quickly after the reinforcement. So if you're looking at how long the behavior will last, continuous doesn't last very long because the second you stop giving that puppy a cookie, they're going to stop sitting. Fixed schedules, they know every single time. Okay, it's still a little bit more spaced out. After every 5 minutes, I can take a break or whatever. The extinction of the behavior is still going to be quicker than if it was random. Variable schedules have a higher resistance to extinction. They also have a higher resistance to acquisition. Higher ratios generate higher response rates. So a 1-to-1 is better than a 10-to-1, right? If you know for every, think about shopping. If you know for every shirt you buy, you're going to get one free, that's going to generate a higher response rate. You're going to buy more shirts. But if you have to buy 10 shirts to get one free, you're like, oh, that may not be really worth it. I've spent $100 on these t-shirts. This extra $10 t-shirt really isn't worth my time. Shorter intervals also have higher rates overall. So if you're looking to kind of train yourself into studying for some of this stuff, especially for the upcoming AP exam, if you say, okay, study for 5 minutes and then take a 2-minute break, that short interval is going to kind of help you get through because you're only like a short amount of time away from your next break. That's how certain workouts work. If any of you have seen anything about Orange Theory Fitness, okay, right, the whole idea is, well, I can run at full speed for 60 seconds, knowing that a rest is coming up soon. So hopefully this wasn't too confusing, and hopefully you guys are able to figure this out at home. Go through the practice problems, and as usual, if you have any questions, let me know. I will talk to you tomorrow.